Hello, everyone. This is Sean Smith, and you are tuned in to the Country Fried Outdoors Chasing Your Experience podcast. The podcast that will connect you to resources regionally and nationwide to engage them and you in open, honest discussions so that we can inspire the growth that you need to chase the experience you want. So strap yourself in because here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another exciting episode of the Country Fried Outdoors Chasing Your Experience podcast. I have a very special guest on the line with me. His name is Justin Ross, and he's involved in quite a few good organizations for the outdoor community, including farmers and hunters feeding the hungry, and also a really cool archery event down in Southern Ohio called Archery Hike. Justin, welcome to the podcast, sir.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I appreciate the time.
Actually, I appreciate you taking the time to come talk with us. I really do. Talking to you offline for a little bit, you are a very busy man. Not only you run, you're a chapter president for the farmers and hunters feeding the hungry, right?
Yeah. We call ourselves coordinators.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a handful of us throughout Ohio that run programs kind of in a local type setting.
Yeah. So you do that, and then you get your little side passion project with Archery Hike, but you're also a sales rep for a major agriculture company. So yeah, you're a busy guy, and I appreciate you taking the time to come talk to us. So
no problem. No problem.
So anyways, you're a big guy out in the outdoors and stuff. And I am when we run the podcast here. And, I had a chance the other day to sit down with a member of the Buckeye Big Buck Club. His name's Jim Williamson. And he's kind of in tight, obviously, because they work pretty much hand in hand with the ODNR. And he's talking to me, and we're talking basically. Obviously, they're a club that's about scoring, big bucks and giving accolades for shooting at big bucks. But he's like, but here's what the biologists of Ohio is actually pushing for us to do. And what he means by us is obviously the hunters in Ohio, and that is to shoot more does. And I'm like, well, you can please let the biologist know that Sean Smith is a doe slaying machine. I've got no problem doing that. And I don't know. What are your thoughts about this?
I'm with you. I've been hunting since I was a kid, so I've been hunting for 30 years, and we've seen the population of whitetails in Ohio, go up and down throughout the years, and we're at this point where we have just this high saturation of whitetails. Obviously, in some areas, we've got a lot of density compared to some other areas that maybe there's not as many deer. But point being that I feel like we do need to harvest more does. There's been so much commercialization of harvesting big bucks, and that's taken its toll in the last 20 years to where guys are ultimately looking for that big buck, and they don't care about doe populations. But we all know that you control a herd size by harvesting does, and listening to to Tonk talk from the Division of Wildlife or Clint, the Ohio biologist, they second that they feel that we should harvest more does, especially as we see CWD in the state now. I think we found it in 4 counties. As you're getting this disease pressure, we need to emphasize harvesting more does to control the population. And really it makes better genetics, or maybe not better genetics, but it makes a better herd to hunt ultimately.
Yeah. And one of the points I made, or when we were talking about it, I said, well, it makes sense because if you want to grow a true potential of an animal, right, you have to have the abundance of resources, right? For that animal to actually reach what its true potential is, especially in the wild. Because I've heard the argument made, and this is a totally different species, but when it comes to wild boar, like everyone's like these big hogzillas and stuff, where the 1,000-pound plus wild boars are what they claim, and a lot of times they come to find out they're not necessarily wild or feral pigs. They're actually like, they were domestic pigs that may have gotten loose at a point in time. The reason that they say that is because it's extremely hard in the wild for an animal like that to reach that size, because of the resources that is available. And the same kind of goes. The same kind of goes with the wild with the white-tailed deer. It's not. We do have a good agriculture presence here in the state of Ohio. Some areas a little bit better than others, kind of depend upon your landscape. But if you're wanting to grow better deer, you have to make sure that there's an abundance of resources for those deer that remain. And like you've already said, and I think biologists agree with this, is that you need to take mouse off of the landscape. And I've got, everybody I know around me, at least, they don't have a problem shooting does. Like we tend, in Ohio, you're only allowed one antler deer to begin with, but you can shoot 6 throughout the entire state. And so a majority of those are going to be antlerless deer. If you're trying to hit your bag limit, and I don't know if you necessarily would say try to hit your bag limit, but we do eat a lot of deer, and majority of that is does or antlerless deer. And so I don't have a problem with trying to reduce that. I know some people will argue against it, saying that they're trying to ruin deer hunting, because I know that was some big topics that come up. Like, all they're trying to do is just kill off all the deer to satisfy the insurance companies and things like that. I'm like, I don't think that's necessarily the problem, because the landscape is only going to be able to support so many deer, right?
It's very true. And honestly, Ohio has been a staple for other states to view how we've managed our whitetail herd. You'll hear the biologists talk about that how our program or our management strategies have really worked wonders for essentially for the ultimate experience. It's kind of like your podcast, chasing your experience. Ohio is great because we've got a great herd size. We've got big deer. We've got the opportunity to harvest multiple deer per year. We can bait, whether you agree or disagree with that. We can bait. We've got different across the state, from northwest of having a lot of ag ground to the southeast where you've got a lot of wooded ground. There's just it provides a ton of opportunity in different experiences. Whether that's maybe you're spotting stalking somewhere, which is not the easiest thing to do with whitetails, but to try to spot stock, or maybe you're sitting in a blind or a tree stand, or you're driving deer like we used to do back, when I was a kid. That was the thing. You don't see that much anymore, but or you're hunting over a bait pile or food plots. But Ohio has had great management strategies to manage our herd. We just have to get back to where more people are harvesting more does, to where we can continue these management strategies and not, our carriage capacities for a certain amount of area don't get out of whack. Because like you're saying, then you're going to see malnourished, animals. There's going to be more disease presence, and that turns into a big negative. And so, with like the program Farmers and Hunters Feeding the Hungry, it's a perfect time to talk about that this program that I'm a part of and have been a part of since 2007. We are raising money through different conservation organizations and outreach to pay for processing these animals. It's free to the hunter, other than they buy their tag and then they go to one of our contracted butchers. But it's a way that really the division has looked at us to help manage the whitetail herd. There's a lot of people that don't have time, or maybe they don't have the money or the necessity to buy another tag, or even the time to get off of work to go harvest the second deer. And that's why they're looking for that buck. But, if they could at least find a little bit more time to maybe they harvest one doe, and a buck, then at least that doe will get used if they want to donate that, or they donate the buck. And so that's where FHFH comes in, that, we cover that cost, and we are viewed by the division as a management tool for the herd.
Yeah. And, that program is actually it's a great idea. I love the premise behind it, because I've heard an argument. I don't know if you listen, how many other podcasts you listen to. There's a pretty popular one called Hunter, HUNTR, ran by Jeremy and Jared. They're both Pennsylvania natives. And I remember listening to a conversation of theirs, and I'm glad you brought this up, this FHFH, and or at least in this segue here, because these guys, they're talking like, I don't want to take the time to deal with a doe. What they mean by that, if I harvest the doe, like I don't want to take the time to process it. Like they don't want to do that, and that's their big hurdle as to why they don't shoot them. Or why they don't shoot them in maybe more than one or two or whatever it is, right? And that's their biggest thing. I'm like, well, I'm listening to, I'm like, there's got to be a program like what we have here in Ohio for you to do that, where you shoot one and then you take it to a butcher free of charge to you. They're going to process it. It's going to be then donated to a local food bank or distributor or local feel good that's going to give this to people who need it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no skin off of your back except for your time to be outside enjoying the outdoors, and you're also helping towards the conservation effort. So,
well, and to your point of the name of your podcast, maybe this is an experience that you have with not only if it's just yourself hunting, but maybe you're with a child or a grandson, or it's another opportunity for another experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And what better way to kind of introduce somebody into the outdoor world, honestly, and especially the hunting world, by not just and I don't want to say this like in a negative way, by the selfish act of taking an animal for your consumption, right? But you're taking this animal that you're going to provide it to the community as a whole to help them, right? What better, I don't really know there's a better way to actually introduce somebody to it, because now it's not just about you, it's about everybody, right?
Well, that's one thing. I mean, it's a broader topic, but
yeah,
the sense of community, just in your local area, it's diminished from what it used to be.
right.
But this is a way that you can create a sense of community with, maybe it's your neighbors down the road, or a local food bank, or just somebody that that needs help with some food. They're food insecure, but anyways, it's a perfect program to help have multiple experiences outdoors at really no cost, and you're supporting, essentially supporting conservation.
You are. You really are, especially with the models that the Ohio is trying to push. And when I say trying to push, I don't mean that in a negative light. Like you're allowed to kill 6 deer in the state of Ohio. One, it can be an antler deer. The other 5 could be antlerless, or you can shoot all 6 antlerless deer. Now, some people are like, well, that seems like an awful lot. And Justin, I know you're from this era too. You remember it used to be zoned out, where it was like zone A, zone B, zone C, and that was it. And each zone had their own bag limit.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess there was one zone, maybe it was like zone D was always the urban areas, right? And you could shoot up to like 4 deer in those ones, right?
Yeah, back in the day when they first had the urban zones, and you could get doe tags for, I know $15, but I want to say they were even $10, maybe back in the mid to late 90s, somewhere in there. But there was essentially, it was, your 3 C's. You had Cleveland, and Cleveland, Columbus, and Cincinnati, and then there were some areas up around Toledo that were all in the urban zones. And yeah, so those, you could harvest additional antlerless deer with these cheaper tags. And I think that was a successful program. And essentially the herd size, I'm trying to recall numbers. I want to say the herd size at one point, and this was the way they did it back then, whether it works now, but I think the herd size back then, they got it down maybe under 700,000 is what their count was. But I know for a lot of years the herd size in Ohio was give or take 750,000, and now Tonk would say it's over a mill. It's hard to tell. But at any rate, that I think that was a successful program, the way that they had the state laid out. And just to emphasize on what you said with the state, you can harvest 6 deer, but for anybody that's out of the state that's listening, it is managed per county now.
Mm-hmm.
So there's 88 counties in the state of Ohio, and each county has a bag limit, either 1, 2, or 3 deer per county. And so then you would have to hunt multiple areas of the state to get to the 6. You can't just kill 6 in that one county.
Yeah, without a doubt. It used to, well, back in the zones, like, so Tuscarawas County fell in like zone C, and we're always allowed to shoot some exorbitant amount of deer. I think it was like 6 we were allowed to shoot at some point in time. And in that entire zone, it didn't go but county by county, which I'll to your point you just made, I like the county by county better than I do the zoned. Because certain counties may have been hit with something hard like EHD or something, or blue tongue, that really put a hurt into the deer herd, but it didn't come into factor in the whole region itself, right? So, you could have been out there shooting 6 deer in a county or a locale, that really couldn't support it. So I like the county by county approach. But the point I was going to try to make with that whole region, back then, there was no state bag limit. Like, you could bounce around to each region and shoot the maximum number of deer in those regions. And then if you did the math, you ended up somewhere around 18.
Right. I think you're correct. It was 18.
That one individual person themselves could go around the entire state to do, right? So everyone who thinks that 6 is a high number, multiply that by 3, and that's how it used to be. So it used to be up to 18. Now, that was something that ODNR had to explain to me, because I did not know that. That was a sidebar conversation I had with a warden who's going to remain nameless. But he was, we talked about that, because I brought up, I was like, 6, that's an awful lot of deer. I was like, well, it used to be 18. I'm like, really? I didn't know that. But I do like the county by county, and you are 100% correct. It does go by county now. So if you're coming to Ohio, or you're in Ohio now hunting, make sure you know what your county bag limits are. And then once again, the state limit is 6, but each county has their own. Most of the counties, I think, that were originally in that C zone are the upper limit, which is about 3. I think the urban zone still, the urban counties like Summit, Franklin, Cuyahoga, Lucas, Hamilton, and Dayton, I think, is in Montgomery County. I think those are still like 4s, just because they're urban areas, and they need to keep the population of deer down. Not only because of the danger they pose to humans because of traffic crash, things like that, but also just because of the environment there really isn't conducive for a large herd. So you're also talking about making sure that there's enough resources for the animals that remain too. So, but anyways,
I don't have the solid numbers, but I've always found it fascinating when you hear harvest data come out, and the amount of, again, I just don't have them in front of me, but the number of people that harvest 1 deer, is X percent. And then you go to 2 deer, for that one person, it drops down, if I remember right, down in like the teens, the percentage of people that will harvest 2, and then it goes to 3 or more, and it's low single digits of people that actually harvest more than 2 deer a year. But it always fascinates me that even though that we can harvest 6 throughout the state, very, very few people actually harvest more than 1, but definitely harvest more than 2 a year.
Yeah, and then so that's an interesting topic, and I'd love to actually sit down with ODNR, like a biologist, from them to actually discuss what those are, that those 2 numbers are, and also to kind of figure out what they feel would be a driving factor behind that. Because I think there could be an access issue there too, because in the state, you're only allowed 1 antlerless deer on public ground. So like we said earlier, if you don't have access to private ground, you're only going to shoot, the maximum you're going to shoot is 2, an antler deer and a antlerless deer. It doesn't matter where you go, because that's all you're going to be able to get unless you have access to private ground somewhere.
I'd love to hear the reply to that. If I get it, certain areas, maybe that carrying capacity is, when you check a deer, it asks public or private, was it antlered, antlerless, and so forth. So the Division of Wildlife would have data to show how many antlerless deer are being harvested on public grounds per county, because it asks you what county you harvested it in, and with what weapon. So I would love to see maybe the division modify that law, because some of the public ground we have in some of these other counties has a higher herd size, and probably less deer being harvested per person or per capita there. So maybe if you're hunting in, I just say Hawking State Forest, I'm just throwing that out. Uh, a pretty good amount of land, a fair amount of deer. Maybe the public grounds could be managed by by area. So if you're hunting in these, if you look at fishing regulations, a lot of the fish regulations are based on what body of water you're in. And then there's a general rule of thumb if it's not named. So maybe this would be a great conversation to have with the Division of Wildlife on possibly modifying the bag limit in whatever public wildlife area you're in. If you're looking at Appalachian Hills Wildlife Area, the old AEP grounds, there's a fair amount of whitetails in there, but there's also a lot of people that public hunt in there. So, that would be a different type of saturation. But that would be something to look at, because to your point, if you don't have access to private ground, you can only kill 2 deer regardless of where you're hunting. Right. And that's not really helping control the herd size.
No, it's not. And if it is, like, it's because a large amount of people are focused their efforts in a small pinpoint area. So it might help that pinpointed area, but not necessarily the state as a whole. And that's a very broad, that could be a huge debatable topic, because I definitely have some very polarizing views when it comes to access in the state of Ohio. And I don't know if I'm really ready to go down that avenue on this podcast, because we've got so much more to talk about. Because I wanted to circle back on farmers, hunters feeding the hungry, and so what's a little bit of the history behind that organization that you can divulge upon us?
Back in 2007, that's when I got started. Back in the late 90s, I think it was 97, Rick Wilson, which started FHFH in Maryland. He's a retired school teacher, and he was driving home actually from school, from teaching that day. And I've told this story 100 times, but there was a car on the side of the road, and a lady kind of motioning to stop. So he stopped, and she said, "Hey, would you mind helping me out? There's a dead deer up here in the woods, and I really need it to feed my kids. I appreciate the help." And he says, "I don't know what told me to do it, but he's like, I figured I was probably going to walk up in the woods and get clubbed or something, get mugged. But he's like, something told me that I needed to do that." So he walked up in there, and sure enough, there's a deer. And the lady was like, "Can you just help me get it, to the car?" And he's like, "Well, do you want me to gut it or anything?" She's like, "No, I know how to do it. We do this all the time." She's like, "I just need the meat for my kids." And that was when the idea of FHFH came about then. And Rick was like, "Man, we got to do something about this. There's people that's hungry. We have a huge natural resource, as in whitetail deer, especially in the East. And what could I do to help?" So he went back to his local church and talked with them, and they came up, with, "Hey, yeah, let's raise some money. We'll pay for processing whitetails." And then, that grew very fast throughout Maryland. They started working with the Division of Wildlife or Fish and Game, whatever the agency's called in Maryland. Started working with them directly to help promote the organization, and it spread pretty quickly. And I think in 2000. Alan Dunlap was one of the first coordinators here in Ohio, which he's still a coordinator. He lives up around Toledo, and he got it going here in Ohio. And then it just kind of spread like wildfire. And so, at one time, I feel like we had maybe 45 or 47 chapters in the state of Ohio. And we have chapters pretty much across the whole U.S., multiple states. But the idea has just, came to be that we raise money locally, we help process deer locally, and then we just give back in that local area. There's been multiple state agencies that have jumped on board to help, as I mentioned earlier, to use us somewhat as a management tool, with grant money and not only, public, grants, but also private donations. And it's just turned into a big flourishing organization of feeding ministry, quite frankly.
Wow, what a grassroots beginning. I did not know that's where this organization started from. Like, I've heard of the organization, of course, growing up in Ohio. It's been here for a while. I always refer to it. I think, when you think of a program like that, you usually hear like Sportsman's Feeding the Hungry or something like that. Like there's like some like organization that has a big name that everyone like refers to it as. I'm trying to think of a good example of this. Like that not all of them are this brand, but that's what everyone calls it.
Yeah, just Hunters for the Hungry.
Yeah.
I mean, which is an organization, but a lot of people just reply to it Hunters for the Hungry, and we're all doing the same thing, just with under a different
organization. Right? Yeah. So. And then I kind of referred to that when I was talking to Jim earlier, and he's like, "Well, we have this one." And I said, "Okay, yeah, I'm sorry, my apologies for that." But wow, that's an interesting way for that to start, and what's something to inspire the creator to do that, or the guy who started this off with. So here in Ohio, how many? I guess what you would say, how many coordinators do we have here in Ohio?
Oh man, I think we're mid-20s now is what we've had. We've had some come and go.
Okay.
The issue, the issue we have, really, it's probably nationwide. But what we've had since COVID is really finding butchers. A lot of deer butchers have, I wouldn't say went out of business, but they stopped butchering deer because it was more profitable for them to just do beef and hogs, and because of the Department of Agriculture with their rules on keeping meat separate within these plants, these processing plants.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard for them to do deer and beef and hogs at the same time, and they have the room to do that when you got to keep them separated.
Yeah.
So a lot of these butchers have just went back to doing beef and hogs because it was just easier for them. They're inspected already. It's more profitable. So we've seen a big decrease in deer butchers across the state of Ohio, which I think has ultimately pushed some of the coordinators that they just kind of give up because they just don't have a butcher to send people to. That would be my call to action for anybody listening, is if you are a butcher or you know of a butcher that's willing to participate within the organization, reach out to me, reach out to any of the chapter coordinators. You find them on the website or whatever. We'll talk about, contact later, but reach out to us because we'd love to have more butchers. That's kind of our limiting factor right now is butchers. We get plenty of deer donations. I mean, we're doing 70,000 pounds of meat a year in the state of Ohio. So if you start thinking about that, that's a lot of deer when you're talking, each deer is give or take 50 pounds, 50, right. 60 pounds, but anyways, so I think there's 20 some of us now that are running chapters. We've got some guys run, counties, multiple counties that they've got butchers in where, there's some that just work with a local butcher and they do, hey, I raised enough money, I'll cover, 10, 15 deer this year, and then we'll cut it off. So you've kind of got the highs and lows of some guys that, I mean, including myself, we just take every deer we can get and I raise enough money to pay for them. To ultimately make the program more successful.
Yeah. So let's talk about the actual process for just a second. And, you can be as in-depth or as brief as you want with this. So I'm Sean, I'm down in your area and I call you Justin, say, hey, I have a deer that I would like to donate. What do we do?
All right. So I would say, all right, man, you told me where you're at. So I'd say what you need to do is call up said butcher. Here's their phone number. Call them up, make sure they're open. You're going to be donating to them. Just call, make sure they're open. Tell them you got a deer for FHFH, and run up there and drop it off. When you get to the butcher, just tell them you want to donate to FHFH. They'll have a form there that you'll sign. They'll write your tag number down, your confirmation number from where you checked the animal. And then you'll just sign the form. Essentially, it's just signing saying you're turning it over to them as a donation, and that's it. You leave. If it's a buck and you would want a shoulder mount or it caped for a shoulder mount, that processor, it might charge you 10, 15 bucks, 20 bucks. That's up to them. That's additional work, which you would have to pay. But other than that, it's free of charge. You, once you've checked the animal, and got your confirmation number, it's as easy as that. You drop it off and drive away, and then we take care of it from there.
So wait a minute. So just so we're clear, I come down, or any hunter that's in your or anywhere can reach out to any chapter, coordinator and, donate their deer. And the only thing I have to do, right, or a hunter has to do is just obviously coordinate a brief coordination with you to find out which butcher I'm going to, coordinate with the butcher to drop the deer off, sign a couple forms, obviously, about the donation, and obviously so they can keep track of the confirmation number to keep it legal on their part. And that's it. That's all I have to do.
That's it. It's that easy. A lot of guys, I'll point them towards the website. We have a very interactive, map on our website, actually, of the whole U.S. And so Rick Wilson started the organization. Now he's since retired, and Josh runs it, his boy. But Josh redid the whole website, and one thing we wanted to do, is kind of a little side note, was we're not the only feeding ministry that's trying to do this. So when we rebuilt the website on this interactive map, we've got all of our butchers and chapter coordinators listed, but we also have other programs listed on there as well with butchers they use that we know about. So it makes it easy for anybody in any given area to find a feeding ministry to use. I just wanted to mention that. But yeah, you look up on where that closest butcher might be to where you're at, and you just, drop it off, and that's it.
So really, there's no excuse, to be quite honest with you. There's really no excuse other than, whatever your personal reservations are. Like, if a hunter or anybody wants to get involved and donate, like it I don't think you guys can make it any easier. I mean, outside of having like an Uber come pick it up and take it to the butcher for you. But yeah, that's too easy of a process for A, people not to know about, and B, for people not to participate in if they want to. Because like I said, I shoot multiple does throughout the year. We eat them. Like, they get, we get them cut up. We'll do sausage and hot dogs and trail bologna. We'll do that. We do all the fun provisions. We also got the steaks and roast. Like, we will eat it, right? Mm-hmm. And you and I had been in contact before. I think it was back in December of 23 that I was wanting to do something, with the organization to donate a deer. It just, everything that kind of fell through, and I didn't get to that level where I had the extra doe or, extra deer to donate at that point in time. And I don't want people to think that I'm over consuming. No, I share a lot that I have here at the house as well. So do other hunters, because I think that's a great way to show hunting in a good light, is by sharing the harvest with people so that they can partake in it and realize, see how good it actually is, how good the meat is, or some people may have heard some bad things about the meat, and they get to taste it and see that it's not what they thought it was, and actually be a good steward for the conservation and be an outdoorsman. So it's not like I go through it and just indiscriminately kill a bunch of animals, and neither does a lot of other people. But this is an opportunity for somebody who maybe at their limit of, before they get to an excess, and then be able to donate an animal to a good cause, and also be able to get out there and be part of a good conservation effort, but also just to get a little bit more time themselves to the outdoors. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's just super simple. And, you and I are the same way. We're harvesting multiple deer a year. I mean, it's what we eat. Mm-hmm. We kind of, I don't know if you want to say we live the lifestyle. I mean, it's just, we just are the life. Like, that's just what we do. So it's nothing for us to harvest a few deer, because that's what we have to have as our red meat source of protein for the year, but I can see where other people, they don't do that, or maybe they're in the ag community and they're buying beef, or maybe they grow, beef or whatever. And so they've got a lot of beef to eat, so they don't want the deer. But again, back to your point, this is a super simple solution to harvest an additional animal that's, other than the tag, is free of charge, and it goes right back into your local community in a food bank.
Yeah. There's no skin off you besides the time and effort. It may be a broken arrow. It may be a broken arrow or a slug.
Let's be honest, it can be expensive these days.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it could be a little bit of an extra expense there, but I get it. But the idea is that, like, if you want to be part of a solution, if you want to be part of an effort to help people who need it, or just to help in the conservation efforts here in the state of Ohio. You know, this is a great organization to get involved in and donate a deer to. And like, you guys have removed all the roadblocks. Like, the only roadblock there is the hunter themselves going out and harvesting an animal. And that's it.
We within the organization kind of talk a lot about how we market the organization, and let me put it this way. So if anybody out there is listening that would like to donate or is on the fence or just doesn't understand, let me put it this way. If you could go and buy a tag, so you've got, an additional expense to buy the tag, but you can go out and hunt, do what you love. Maybe it's by yourself or with a child or with a grandchild or whatever. And you, by having that experience and harvesting an animal, you could create 200 meals for people. Would that make sense? For free of charge? To me, that's a no-brainer. If you want to help out people, if you have 50 pounds of meat and you give that in a quarter-pound serving, say it's a quarter-pound burger or whatever, that's 200 meals for one deer. And all you had to do was go enjoy what you wanted to do. Again, to me, it seems like it's a no-brainer. Why would you not want to do that?
Yeah, I'm with you. And I'm glad you brought up another figure, and that's the amount of meat you guys are currently bringing in, which you said about 70,000 pounds.
Yeah, give or take. We've been the last handful of years, we've been averaging right around 70,000 pounds of meat a year, which you could say, again, if you just break it into quarter-pound servings, what is that? 280,000 meals.
Yeah.
Or servings.
Yeah.
280,000. That's feeding a lot of people.
Yeah, you're feeding a lot of people, but just so people know, there's 11 million people that live in the state of Ohio. That's the rough estimate. So we're not even 25% of we're not even hitting 25% of what, of the total population. Now, of course, not all 11 million people are in need, but at the same time, like, it's a good cause, and it sounds like there's room for growth, and I think we all could be a part of it. And listen, I want to be straightforward with everyone listening. Like, if that's not your game, like you like to go out, you have the time to go out and you're holding out for that one buck, and that's your deer, fine. I'm okay with that. Like, don't think that I'm trying to bully you into doing something you don't want to do. And to be honest with you, let's put it this way. Let's say we know that people come in hunting for bucks because they're looking for something to put on the wall. I don't shame people for that. If you're not interested in the meat, well, listen, I don't want to go down an ethical debate with everybody, but if you're not interested in the meat, like you're interested in just harvesting a mature animal for your own, your personal gain, your personal goals, whatever it is, then here's an organization that will help you distribute the meat out to people who would appreciate it. And, and you get what you want. It's a win-win. It's a win-win. And you're out nothing except for maybe a little bit of gas money to get to a butcher. Just my 2 cents.
The other side to think about that is if you say, wow, somebody on the fence is like, wow, they're harvesting a lot of deer just for donation. We're doing 70,000 pounds of meat a year in donations. And the Division of Wildlife is still saying, hey, we have to harvest more does to get our herd size down. That's the effectiveness of Ohio's management strategies, that we have a huge natural resource that is repopulating itself, and yearly, we're getting 70,000 pounds of meat off of that, and we still need to harvest more. That's how many deer are in the state of Ohio.
There's a lot. there are a lot. But if you think every adult doe, that's a potential of 2 fawns every year that she's in existence. Now, that doesn't mean both fawns make it through, to breeding age or to adulthood, because of predation or vehicle accidents or whatever, right? It's nature. It's what happens. But generally speaking, for every doe that exists, that's the potential of 2 fawns a year. Sometimes it's just one. Usually they're younger deer, the younger does, their first couple times going into the cycle, they end up with 1 fawn. And then as they get older and more mature, it could be, usually it's twins, and it could be as much as triplets, if not a few more, so the population is it can handle it. Here in Ohio, it can handle it. That's why we have the liberal seasons that we have to begin with, because we have an archery season that starts in September. It doesn't until February.
Right.
You know, we have a gun season that's only a week long, but we have an additional weekend. We have another half week. I would just say a half week of muzzleloader that comes in. There's the resource for us to be able to do this. When it comes to the amount of animals that we have, it's an access problem.
To cap that off, I think, well, I was going to say we hadn't really mentioned too, but I think we end up at like 200, and if I remember right, 218,000, give or take, is what the total harvest was this year.
Yeah, I haven't seen the numbers what the total harvest was, but we're usually around that mark anyways. I know the trend now though is archery is overtaking firearms when it comes to total number of deer killed. There's a lot more people getting involved in the archery season, and some people will say it's because of crossbows. Whatever. I don't know what the issue is, but if you think about it, you have 6 months. Well, not 6 months, but you got practically 5 months from September to February that you can hunt with legal archery equipment. Why not get involved in it? You know what I mean?
I think 2 years ago, if I remember right, 2 years ago is when the archery harvest surpassed the gun harvest. If I remember right, it was roughly like, I think it was just over 50%. And I think we're averaging right over 50, 52, 55% archery harvest to gun harvest. And then within the archery harvest, I think it's 65%. I think 65% maybe of the archery harvest is crossbow.
Yeah, it's popular in the state. Like it's a system that is a good crossover system that brings a lot more people, that breaks down a few barriers to entry, because it's familiar to the firearms users, right? But it's still archery equipment. Now I know Pope and Young don't accept, bucks taken with crossbow, whatever. Like once again, I went on a very small tirade on a couple previous episodes of the podcast where I don't really care. Like it's to me, it's archery. I know that's not the popular opinion. Some people will argue that, and you're allowed to have your opinion as well as I am, but I don't see it hurting anything, to be quite honest with you. But also I'm okay with baiting too. Like I'm not like, in my experience, I'll be honest with you, in my experience, I don't see a whole lot of trophy bucks sitting on top of a bait pile. Like not during season or during daylight, like because they didn't get that big because of being stupid. So
they're ultra skittish.
So it doesn't work out like you think it does. And you just don't go throw out a big pile of corn and think, oh, I'm going to kill a big buck on this. That's not how that works. There may be some very, very, very small instances that does work. But in my experience, and I've been hunting since I've been 14, and maybe so I'm 40 now. So I've been hunting for for about quarter of a century now. Very rarely do I see big trophy bucks sitting on bait pile somewhere, especially during legal hunting hours. But this is my opinion, in my experience.
Right.
So, but anyways, well, thank you obviously for sharing the information about Farmers and Hunters Feeding the Hungry. That's a great organization, and it's obviously only part of what you do. But I know that's just a part of Justin. What else is Justin involved in? Tell us a little bit about yourself. How long you been in the outdoors? How long you been hunting? Just a good general overview of who Justin is.
So myself, I harvested my first deer when I was 14, and I'll be 44 here in May, and so I've had a lot of time to have a lot of fun in the outdoors. We chase turkeys, we chase rabbits, squirrels, or whatever. We just enjoy the outdoors a lot. But so I've been doing this a long time. I pride myself on having experiences. I do like to talk about my experiences because you're able to do that in Ohio. You've got, like I said, you've got different terrains, different styles of hunting. You have so many different weapons you can hunt with. Whether you're talking, traditional archery to crossbows, compounds to straight-walled rifle cartridges, pistols, shotguns, muzzleloaders. The list is just. I've experienced a lot in Ohio. It's been a very good state to grow up in and hunt. And my, I guess, evolution of being a hunter has turned me into where I was running run a chapter of FHFH, because that's just what I do. I like giving back, and that's a perfect way for me to give back. We can hunt. It's part of our community. And what goes along with that then is obviously what we're going to talk about with Archery Hike as an archery event I do once a year. This kind of idea started as a different way of raising funds for my FHFH chapter when I used to do a summer bow league. For a couple different summers, we'd have a 6-week bow league, and guys come up and we kept score, and just had a good time on a 3D course. And that essentially has turned into Archery Hike now.
Yeah, Archery Hike. I'm ready to dive into that here soon. I'll tell you what. I heard you on another podcast, and I think it was How Outdoors podcast, the O2 podcast, is where I first got introduced to Archery Hike, and I don't honestly remember how I came across it. I think if I remember correctly, it was on the Go Wild app that someone had posted that they listened to the podcast and had talked about this and brought up this Archery Hike title and stuff in the description. So I had never heard of it. So I looked it up because I love to shoot 3D. I love it. Like that's, I don't compete in 3D, but I just love to shoot it. I think it's a great practice form for any archery hunter. And so I looked it up, and I got on the interweb, and I found the Archery Hike, and I signed up for it. I came down last year and shot it, and it was an amazing time. I'm definitely gonna let you take the spotlight and explain all this more and more, because you kind of led into what the inspiration of it was. But let's dive into it. Archery Hike, what is it?
So Archery Hike is what I call an adventure 3D shooting event. My wife and I, like, when we take vacations, we just hike everywhere. We go on like different excursions. We're not beach people or the typical like vacation. We just go places and go hike, up in the backcountry and just enjoy it. And so we've hiked multiple continents. It's just what we do. But I've hunted with archery equipment since I was a kid. And like I said, with running a chapter of FHFH, and I had this archery bow league years ago to help raise money. For whatever reason, my wife and I ended up with some property in Hocking County, and it just kind of evolved into, oh my gosh, I could go back and have an archery shoot, and we love to hike. And obviously for anybody that hasn't heard about it, it's down in the Hocking Hills area, right outside of Logan, and which is obviously a huge part of the state for people to visit and go hiking.
Mm-hmm.
So this title just came about, Archery Hike. And, what is that? And so, well, this will be the third year now, but 2 years ago, so 2021 or 2022, I came up with this idea on our property. I just created it's not a path, but a course, a 3D course through the property, and figured, hey, we'll raise some money. That'll help process some deer. Everybody will have fun. You'll get some exercise, just be a good time. Well, so I did that in 22, got some targets, some 3D targets. We've got Delta McKenzie's and Reinhardt's. Really anything from squirrels to deer, antelope, alligators, full body bison, full body elk, and so forth. And so the idea is that we put these animals in real life situations. So it seems like when you go on the hike, Archery Hike turns into like a real life spot and stock style 3D shoot. So you're just not going to see an animal standing out in the wide open at 20 yards, because that's not really what happens. So Archery Hike has evolved now into multiple courses. But you're talking anywhere from a mile to, a couple mile hike. I think, Sean, you said last year on your Garmin, you had 3.6, if I remember right.
I think so. It was around there. And you just said that. I just picked my phone up because I was going to dig through my Instagram post to see what it was. But yeah, I tracked, and I think I was a little short because I forgot to hit my tracker until I was already a couple targets in. So yeah, it is definitely, that's an accurate statement, that 3 mile mark, and just 3 miles and some change, probably approaching 3.5.
If I remember right, we were around, last year it was like a 3 mile hike, give or take. And, by the time you walk, grab areas, come back, you say you're 3.5.
Right.
I feel like it was around around 1,500 feet elevation change up and down. For people that don't know the Hocking Hills area, it is I wouldn't say mountains. I mean, I guess it's hills, the hills of Ohio. You're in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains, but you've got some steep upgrades, steep downgrades, creeks, valleys, and so forth. So that's how Archery Hike is built, is through not only my property, some surrounding properties that have been gracious enough to help further the cause and let us use their property to extend what we can do, to where last year it turned into a 3 mile hike. And it was kind of taxing on guys when they were coming off the hill. They were pretty beat. The shoot is in July. This year it's July 12th, 13th, and 14th, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And again, it's a 1 weekend event. But this year we decided, hey, why don't we create two courses to break it up? So we're going to do an Eastern course, so Eastern U.S. animals, and then a Western course with Western U.S. animals. The Eastern course is going to be roughly a mile. Again, I've got it kind of played out where I want to put things, but this changes year to year. We don't mow paths. We're not trimming, corridors or anything. This is just kind of real life, like backcountry spot and stalk, what you would have in a real life hunt. But the eastern side would be roughly a mile, about 500 feet of elevation change. You'll have 10 targets on that course. Plus, we finally got a Sasquatch. Everybody loves, the Reinhardt Sasquatch target.
Yeah.
So the old Yeti will be out there. But so you'll have 10 targets plus a Sasquatch on the eastern course, and yardage wise, we'll probably have 15 yards to 50 yards. And those animals might be a squirrel or a raccoon, up to a whitetail, black bears, anything you'd find in the east.
Mm-hmm.
Then the western course this year is going to be roughly 2 miles. You're going to have about 1,200 feet of elevation change, up and down. You have another 15 targets plus, there'll be Sasquatch on that course, and you're looking 25 yards to 90 yards. And maybe you'd have a beaver or some small animal, all the way up to, like I said, we've got full body bison, full body elk, pronghorn, mule deer, you name it. We have sheep, Dall sheep, Rocky Mountain Bighorn sheep, and so we'll set those animals in the appropriate areas of essentially where they, situations where they live in their normal nature or natural habit. But so total Archery Hike this year is going to have two courses. You're an Eastern and Western, roughly 3 miles total. You have 25 targets, plus you get to shoot at Sasquatch, which is always fun. That's going to be Archery Hike. But what it'll do is guys that want to go out and say they hike the Eastern course, they'll come back in by the cabin there, and they can get a breather, get a drink of water, and then maybe they head up on the east or the western side. Or if they just want to shoot the Eastern course, they go back out and shoot the Eastern course. It's a large item to note that when you get your hiking pass, you'll go online and register at archeryhike.com. You will need to register beforehand, because we only have so many. There's only so many spots available because we do this on our own property. We only have so much parking. So parking is actually what limits how many people we can have, which is great for the shooters because you'll be able to hike these courses multiple times in a day. They
Right.
won't be jam packed. You'll be able to shoot as much as you want. And then again, it's not a competition. It's all for you, or maybe you compete against your buddies, but you'll be able to shoot, take breathers, and just enjoy the day. But with the two courses, you'll be able to circle around, get you some water. We'll probably have some food on site. Another nonprofit called Street Warriors has been gracious enough they've got a grill out there. They raise a little bit of money for their cause.
Mm-hmm.
And so anyways, they'll feed some guys or feed people, but then you can do that. Maybe you do that Western loop, and that's going to be a rougher hike. But at the end of the day, that's what we're doing. We're shooting our bows while we're hiking in the hills. Additional to those two courses, we're going to put up a kids course this year. We had a lot of kids that came along last year, and they had little kids bows, and they wanted to shoot some, and we didn't charge them. They just tag along with mom and dad because they're having fun. But there was enough that I felt that might probably be necessary to have a little kids course. So we are going to build, just a little 5-target kid course up behind the cabin. It'll have it's up on the hillside. It'll be fun. But any kids that come along, if they're along with their parents, obviously they can just go up there and shoot and have a little bit of fun with that as well, and kind of feel like they're on their own course as well. But that's what Archery Hike is this year. A couple other things to note: when you register, you automatically get entered into. We give away a brand new bow every year. This year we're giving away a Hoyt, so you'll automatically be entered into that giveaway. You'll get a free outdoor product. With the idea, 2 years ago we did a 36-ounce Nalgene style Triton plastic bottle.
Mm-hmm.
Last year we did a dry bag. I think it was roughly maybe like a 12 by 12 type dry bag. This year I got something else up my sleeve. The idea is if you shoot Archery Hike year after year after year, you'll end up with some products or some kit to help you if you're going to go in the backcountry, whether you're just camping, hiking, or maybe you go on a hunt, that you'll have some of these necessary products to help you, to help fulfill your kit to be able to do that. One other thing that we also do, well, you can shoot 1 day, 2 day, or 3 days when you register. A lot of guys do 1 day. We have had multiples do 2 day, where they'll come and go. We're so close to Logan. We're about 3 miles outside of Logan. So guys will come down and camp for the weekend and maybe shoot 2 days. But the other thing we started last year and we're doing again this year is the Hike Heavy Challenge. So the serious backcountry guys that want to further train for a fall hunt where they're going out west into the mountains, or they're just, they like rucking, you can sign up for the Hike Heavy Challenge. And what that is you're going to carry a 50-pound pack. You have to bring your own pack. We'll just weigh it when you check in. We verify it's 50 pounds, and you just complete one of the courses, either the Eastern or the Western, with that 50-pound pack. And that was a successful, Hike Heavy Challenge. With that, you'll get an additional entry into the free bow giveaway by being one of the Hike Heavy challengers. And we're doing a separate giveaway for Hike Heavy Challenge folks for an outdoorsman's pack frame with the Atlas Trainer, which is a full pack frame that you can haul meat on or put a bag on. And then the Atlas Trainer is actually a metal plate that bolts to that pack frame where you can carry up to 90 pounds, which is in the name, Atlas Trainer. It's a trainer for you to prepare for some of these backcountry adventures. That's a whole lot of info real quick.
That was a lot. That was a lot there. Listen, first off, I'm going to attest. This is not your typical bow shoot. Like if you go to your local clubs and stuff, this is not it. And it sounds like you've broken it up a little bit into two different trails. Cause last year was 3 mile. It was 3.6 miles. I just found my post, and it was 3.6 miles that we walked, and there's a lot of elevation gain, a lot of elevation loss as you're, diving down in the valleys. You end up going across a couple of and when I say a creek, it's definitely more of like a drainage creek that, it's nothing that I wouldn't think that you would have a hard time getting across, but you are essentially on a actual hike is what you're doing. You just happen to be shooting your bow. I think you said it best when you said that. There is, like, if there's stuff you want to bring with you for that type of activity, like if I even thought about maybe even bringing trekking poles, maybe to kind of, because there are some little bit steeper areas. I don't think you necessarily need them, but I think maybe one would be beneficial to help you if you think you should need those.
I tell guys that are asking about the shoot, I would bring anything along that would help you in that real life backcountry hunt. If it's trekking poles, if it's water, if it's a day pack, maybe some snacks, I would definitely bring it along because it will help you out.
Yeah, for sure. Because I know the track that we did was I tracked for 4 hours from start to finish. And that's, that was last year. So obviously it was the whole course in one. And, there was really no slowdowns. Like I end up, the only slowdown I came across, there was a group that was shooting in front of me, and no offense to them. Like, I'm not saying they're anything bad. I ended up just joining them and shooting with them, but, cause I was by myself, but that was the only real slowdown I came into. And, a lot of friendly people. Those guys happen to be, I guess from Vance Outdoors is who I ended up, hooking up with there and shot with them last year. They kind of did their own promo. I think they were doing their own promotional video and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that was it was a good time. I really recommend people to go because, I don't know. I think this is why challenges like TAC and a few others are gaining popularity by the masses because it's not a competition, like you said. It can be between you and your friends, but there's no official competition, right? There's no one that's getting huffy because of line scores or something like that. Like, it's just you challenging yourself and just having a good time, you know? And and honestly, I think that's why a lot of like just your average Joe archery shooters love these type of events, because there's not that it's not that baggage hanging over top of you, or that how do I want to put this, or just that stress of dealing with of that type of competition. And I don't know, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's fun for people, because there's a lot of people that don't have the opportunity, or just never, they just don't have time, or maybe the financial resource to go on some of these expeditions or these hunts that they see on TV or YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that was a part of the inspiration for Archery Hike. I mean, not only is which we'll talk about here in a little bit, but the trying to raise money for conservation. I have this tagline I always use. It's called recreation for conservation. I mean, that's what we're all doing. We're out here recreating to raise money for conservation. But this is a perfect shoot to get that feeling of a backcountry hunt. And like you said, Sean, it's not a competition. I can tell you that the idea here is to make a double lung shot. There's going to be some shots where you're like, I can't hit that 12 ring, but I know I can take his lungs out. And that's the idea. That's what you would do in real life. You're not trying to hit that 12 ring. You got to make that shot to make a double, or make the shot to hit double lungs. And that's how Archery Hike is set up. It is set up as like a real life, real life type event, or real life type situation.
Yeah. I don't, people don't take this the wrong way. Like, competitive shooting, target shooting on like a 3D course. Like you said, there's 12 rings, there's your 14 rings, there's all this. Like, that's all great when it comes to score, but depending upon how those targets are set, the angles that you're shooting for those aren't the correct angle you should be doing for hunting. And
right.
I like the idea you got here. Like, hey, listen, like, try more for this type of shot than like actual for score. Like, go out there like you're actually hunting. And I wish, and to be honest with you, I really wish a major manufacturer, and I don't know if there'd be a large enough market for them to do it, but they would offer a target line series built just for that, for that type of practice. Yeah, shooting rings is fun. I get it. It's precision. It helps with precision and stuff. But at the end of the game, like, if you have a 1/4-2 or quartering way shot and you shoot something in a 12 ring, right? That's not going to work very well for you in a real life situation. Like, you scored great, right? You might win the tournament because of that, but you're not going to win the game of hunting with that. You're going to end up wounding an animal, or worse. And it doesn't work out that way. So I wish, that's a big wish. But
right.
Learning how to correctly shoot angles and stuff. So,
we'll just call up Reinhardt. Let's just call up Reinhardt and see if we can get them to jump on board with that.
Hey,
that might be a tough call.
Yeah, dear Reinhardt, we need you to drop a crap ton of money into creating a target system that does not have scoring rings on it, that has like well, I'll tell you what, the closest thing I found to that is Delta McKenzie has their daddy line of bucks, or targets, and it's like the big daddy, the Hoosier daddy, and then the baby daddy. And so they're basically the legs are their own separate part, like they're connected, and then the body is all the same type of foam, right? That you could shoot into. It dovetails onto the legs, right? And then the head dovetails onto the body. And essentially, if you don't tear up the legs and the head, all you have to do is replace the body, but the whole animal is shootable. It's the same type of foam. Like, if you look at the Reinhardt target, like, you have a certain type of foam that's the body, and then they have the replaceable insert. With the daddy line, like, the whole body is available. I love that target. It's a little pricey for what it is, but that's what I use in my backyard to practice angles and stuff. Was because I could shoot the whole target. And I think, I really think bow hunters, archery shooters, they really need that type of practice. Because shooting a 12 ring, like I said earlier, on a quarter away deer is not the best thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I like the idea. Like, I like your idea there, focusing more on actual real life shots versus, for score. Because you had a turkey last year. I'm like, I can't even see. It's like that 12 ring's covered. I can't hit that.
Right. Was that the strutting bird that was out in the little roadway, but you had to shoot just kind of through some, you shot through some,
that one.
right through the edge. I want to say that strutter was, I think he was like 27 yards, maybe something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, if you didn't get in your head that those limbs were right there, I mean, you had a hole to shoot through. It was no big deal.
Right.
But you can't worry about all the stuff that's around. It's like, just make the shot. It's not a hard shot. But when you start thinking about everything else, it becomes tough. But that's why archery hike is fun, because it's real life, and it gets in your head. You're trying to make that kill shot.
It gets in your head. I hate turkey targets to begin with. They're like my nemesis when I go to a 3D shoot. I just, for whatever reason, they get in my head. All the other ones I do great on, but turkey targets for some reason. And then you add in the fact now, like how that one was set up, and I loved it. It was a great target, and I'm like, I can't even, like, it's blocked. I can't even get to it.
Definitely, like in those situations, I mean, again, because you're shooting 3D and not real life, you got time to kind of look and figure out where you want to place that shot. But guys listening, if you come, bring your binoculars, bring a rangefinder. It's only going to help you, and you're going to use those in real life. So bring them along, because you'll need them to try to just look. Maybe you want to look and make sure there's not a limb that's. If you got a target that's 80 yards out, make sure there's not a limb at 50 that your arrow is going to clip. That those are all, again, real life situations. I can't say it enough.
Right. And it's exactly what it is. Like it's a great time. And I really, really do encourage everyone who listens to this, they share it with people that who are big archery shooters, and then, go down there and shoot it. Like, don't expect an ASA course. That's not what you're getting here. That it is not it. It's a challenge, and it's not like the total archery challenge where you have a 126 yard shot. Like it's not like that. Like it's a realistic challenge for you as a hunter, right?
If you go to archery hike, your expectation should be, I might lose an arrow or so because we're having fun, but I'm also going to have tired legs and probably mud on my rear end from falling down a hill.
Yep, and that's exactly what happened to me. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I didn't want to share that, but yeah, that's exactly what happened.
And maybe a couple little cuts from some briars or something, where you had to, hike through a little briar patch or something.
Yeah, no, and it's a great time. Like, like I said, bring stuff to help you get around if you need it, and come check it out for sure. And what I like that you do, though, like, unlike other things where if I come to you and I pay for this hiking pass, I can shoot from the time you start until the time you shut down. And I can go around as many times as I want. I can shoot as many arrows as I want and just have a good time. And I think that's what the added value to that. Like, go around, do it multiple times if you can. Unfortunately, last year after I was done the 4 hours, I'm like, I think I'm done. But I've
actually had, we had a booth there at the Open Season Sportsman's Expo 2 weekends ago, and there was a lot of guys asking, well, how many targets? And I'm like, well, it's set up, with 2 courses, you'll have 25 targets, plus you get to shoot at Sasquatch. But I said, it's really unlimited, because you can just stay there and shoot all day. I said, if there's one target that you like, or it's just killing you because you can't make that shot, you can stay there and shoot as many times as you want. If people come up, let them go through, but shoot that until you're comfortable with it. That's the fun of it. That's the fun of not being jam packed and to where you're just like a train going around the course. You can just take your own time, go at your own pace.
Right. Because I can tell you at TAC, there's thousands of people there. And because I shot the one at Seven Springs. The first day we got through pretty easy. I went and did the prime course on the first day. It was fun. There was really no bog downs. Then I went and did the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, their course on the second day. And there was a lot of bog downs. Especially when we got to the longer shots. They don't make you shoot from the cones. Like, you could scoot up, but everybody who doesn't have a pin to shoot from 126 yards, they're just lobbing arrows, and then they got to take forever to try to find their arrow. So there's a lot of like backups that happen there. I did not experience that at your event at all. Like none. There was no, I mean, yeah, there might be somebody who was looking for an arrow somewhere or two, but there was no major backups. And that's appreciative. I love that. I mean, even if I wanted to shoot through, say at TAC, like, typically if there's slow groups ahead of you, you go around them, or they should let you shoot through. That's kind of like a common courtesy. But at TAC, there was no, you couldn't do that because the line was the people that were still trying to get through. Because it was just a line that just started to pile up. It almost looked like I-270 outside of Columbus on rush hour. So it just there was no way to get around, and you just had to wait your turn. And eventually, they started lining us up like 10, 15, 20 people up on the same line, shooting arrows down to the same target. So just to get you through. So
right.
I mean, yeah, it's fun. Don't get me wrong. It was a lot of fun. It was a good experience. I would go again, but like I really encourage people to check out Archery Hike because it's once again, it's that experience, and it's a great experience. And you guys have got something special down there. And I know your thoughts. You'd like to keep it, you maybe see a little bit more growth, but also you don't want to grow too big. And you're trying to find that sweet spot. And I hope you guys find what that is, because this is definitely an event that's worth checking out for sure.
Yeah, appreciate it.
So you brought up something about giving to conservation and stuff. And so obviously this is kind of the idea behind Archery Hike, or, kind of the, a funding source for something else. What do you do with the funds? Can I ask you that, or is that a no question for you?
Oh, no, it's fine. No, that's kind of what brought Archery Hike on was three things really. I've loved to shoot archery. I've been shooting since I was a kid. My wife and I hike all over the place, and it's a great way to raise money for FHFH or any conservation organization. That's why I say it's a recreation for conservation. And you'll see it right on our flyer. It says part of the proceeds to help fund local conservation organizations. And this year we're going to help with Honor Flight Columbus as well. That's our goal. So anyways, the last 2 years we've been able to give money back to FHFH and actually Whitetails Unlimited. Whitetails Unlimited, the local field director I went to high school with and actually hunted with when I was a kid. And so anyways, he's helped a lot. Joel's helped a lot to get this up and running as well, has been a part of it. So, we've been able to give money back to Whitetails Unlimited. And like I said, this year, one of my goals with Archery Hike is to raise enough money to sponsor one veteran for Honor Flight Columbus. And we're gonna tag team with Vance Outdoors. They do their own honor flight. It's in August this year. I think they put 100 veterans on that flight, and it's roughly each veteran is $1,000 to sponsor for honor flight. So that's our goal this year, is to raise enough money for that we can sponsor one veteran for that Honor Flight Columbus, as well as give back to FHFH and Whitetails Unlimited.
Well, those are all great causes too. I think I met that guy from Whitetails Unlimited there last year. What was his name again?
Joel Reynolds.
Joel. Yeah, Joel and I, we shot a little mini competition there at the practice range during some downtime. I won't tell you who won, but anyways.
Yeah, Joel's been a huge help. My wife and I travel around the state helping him put on dinners or banquets, deer camps as they call them, to again just help raise money for multiple causes. And like I said, big shout out to Joel, because he's been a huge help at getting Archery Hike off the ground and get this up and going, for us.
Yeah, it takes a lot of good sponsors to kind of help get things off. Or good sponsors or good backing to get these things up and running. And you guys definitely are moving in the right direction, because you got a good bit of people show up by the time midday came around. There was a lot of people over there when I first got there in the morning last year. I think, I don't know, did I come down on a Friday or a Saturday? I don't remember now, but I came down, and by the time I got through the course, it was getting towards midday. There was even more people still coming. So, it was a good turnout. What do you normally, do you know your numbers, what you normally get per day?
We we would max out at 100 a day. 75 to 100 is what I strive for. So like I said, it's not a huge event,
Right.
but it's enough. It's enough for everybody to have fun.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody can experience the courses, and we raise money at the end of it.
Right. Well, absolutely. And that's a good number to have. Like, so once again, 2,000 people to deal with or 100 people. Make your decision on that, which one's best for you. And don't get me wrong, go check out TAC, go check out the R100, go check out these other events to get those experiences. But don't forget about Tucked Away Cabin down in Logan, Ohio, because that archery hike is something to take on. It is a whole different level of challenge that adds a good level of realism to the archery experience, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
One thing I left off when I was talking about is when you check in the day of you register online and pick a day, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or multiple days. But when you check in at the cabin there, when you show up, we actually give everybody a trail guide.
Mm-hmm.
So I type up this trail guide, like if you're going to go hike, some trail in some national park or wherever, there's typically a trail guide, or you get on all trails and there's some type of a guide that helps you around. So that's what we create, this trail guide.
Yep.
And it there's a scorecard on there if you want to keep score with your buddies or whatever. But the main portion of it is you hike to each trail marker, and the trail markers are, where you shoot from, or, where each target is. And there's a description on that trail guide of what you might be looking for.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't tell you what it is, where it's at, or how far. That's up to you as the hunter to find it. But it'll give you an idea, to whether you're looking maybe for a predator, like a cougar, or a hog. It's down in some mud somewhere or whatever. But it'll give you an idea, and that it kind of brings that to life, and it makes it fun to read the trail guide and try to figure out what the hell you're even looking for.
I loved that idea. I'm glad you brought that up, because it kind of slipped my mind. Like, I was reading, like, oh, there's some like really clever little little, not poems, but like, I guess you could say poems, but really clever
Mm-hmm.
little statements here that you guys wrote for each one of the targets. Unfortunately, mine, I had my bino harness, and by the time I was done, I was so soaking with with sweat. Not to be gross, but that poor thing didn't make it. If I wanted to keep score, I wouldn't have been able to, because it didn't quite make the saturation, that the level that it reached, as I was trying to hike myself through all the hills and dales and creeks and everything else there. So, but no, it was, I really like that idea. This year when I get mine, it's going to go in my my quiver.
Yeah.
More
One
close
thing
to my
I
body.
thought about is trying to make it somewhat more of an audio guide. And
Mhm.
I was going to try to do something last year with it, and I didn't. And I still might this year, but I think that might work better if I could, when you check in, you could, somehow, or I could email it or whatever, you could get an audio guide
Right.
that would just download on your phone, and then that would kind of guide you through.
Right.
I think that would be a neat upgrade. So, maybe future type thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah. You could well, I'm trying to think how the cell reception was there when I was there.
Well, the cell reception's horrible if you're down around the cabin. Once you get up on the hill, you're fine, but it's terrible.
Yeah. So the idea I was thinking right off the top of my head probably wouldn't work. I was going to say, well, if you do a QR code to like a link somewhere,
mm-hmm.
you could almost do like a private podcast somewhere that would take them to that link, and then they could be able to go off that. But that wouldn't work down there because there's no cell service. So like that tucked away cabin is very appropriately named. It is definitely tucked away. Well, is there anything else you'd like to cover about any one of the organizations you're involved in?
No, I just I appreciate the time, and again, that slogan came up last fall, the hashtag donate a doe, to revert back to FHFH. Love to see people try to strive to maybe harvest an additional animal as we roll into this fall, and help somebody out, help feed one of your neighbors. I mean, ultimately that's what you're doing. So hopefully people will hear this and they'll be inspired to help out. And if you don't want to do that, that's fine. Maybe you come down to Archery Hike, register. You can register at archeryhike.com. Register for a single day hiking pass. It's $55. And then that hiking pass is good for all day. You can shoot it as much as you want. And that'll help raise some money then that we'll go ahead and use to help butcher some animals. And we'll give it back to whitetails into all their conservation movements. And ultimately would like to sponsor one veteran for RF Flight Columbus this year.
Well, it sounds like you got some good goals ahead of you, and I think you're going to make it. I got a good feeling. I think it's going to be a good turnout for you guys this year. You've put a lot of legwork into it. It was good seeing you down there at that open season Sportsman's Expo there in Columbus. It was good catching up with you down there. So, what's your other social? So we got archeryhike.com. Where else can they follow along?
Yeah, it's archeryhike.com. You can find us on Instagram or Facebook at Archery Hike. And then as well as with FHFH, you can go to our website, FHFH.org, which actually redirects you to feedingthehungry.org. And you can find that interactive map there where you can just click on one of the icons and that'll give you a chapter coordinator or a butcher that we are contracted with, wherever that might be in multiple states, across America. And you can also find, Farmers and Hunters Feeding the Hungry on all the social media platforms as well. But yeah, again, just thank you. Appreciate the time. And would love to see you in July 12, 13, 14, Logan, Ohio at Archery Hike. Please register beforehand.
Right.
And yeah, we'll hope to see you there.
Well, Justin, first and foremost, thank you so much for taking time on your busy day to sit and talk with us about, two great organizations that are obviously linked together in some fashion. Guys and gals, if you're interested in donating to FHFH, what better way to get practice for that season by coming down to Archery Hike and checking that out. A great way for you to get yourself into shooting shape or just to challenge yourself to see where you're at. And also while you're there at Archery Hike, your funds will be going towards FHFH. Obviously part of the proceeds go towards that's not 100% funded that way, but part of the proceeds go towards that. So you can help donate there. But anyways, like I said, Justin, thank you so much for taking your time out of your day. Folks, we do appreciate you guys taking time out of your day as well to sit and listen to Justin and I talk about two great programs that are available to you here in the state of Ohio, at least for the last hour and a half that we've been talking about it. Ladies and gents, I from the bottom of my heart, hope that you guys stay safe out there as you are chasing the experience that you want. Remember, it is your experience. Enjoy every single minute of it, and don't let anybody else troll you away from that experience. Until our experiences cross paths again, I hope you guys stay safe out there, and God bless you.